Emotional affair or physical affair? Which hurts worse? This is a really big question, and we're going to have to unpack this today. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do. Hundreds of things that can help you. And if you have a question to this topic or any of the others, go ahead and put it in the box. We'll get back to you as soon as possible, so stay tuned. Emotional affair or physical affair, which hurts most? Oh my gosh, what an overwhelming question. And if you're watching this, you've probably experienced one, the other, or both. Now, this is going to be a very complicated thing to talk about and walk through. So before we do that, first let me say, you're in pain either way. If he or her cheated on you, emotionally or physically, you're in pain. You could actually be experiencing partner betrayal trauma. We have a whole book on that. The research shows you could have signs of depression, PTSD, a lower self-esteem, lower sexual self-esteem, and so many other symptoms. And if you are experiencing that, I'd highly recommend you go to partnerbetrayaltrauma.org and look at the resources and maybe talk to someone about that because you're in pain. Okay, so let's talk about the emotional affair. That's where maybe they're going back and forth on social media, they're texting, they're grooming somebody at work or the coffee shop, they meet regularly, they're talking, but there really is the sharing of the hearts, this bonding, this friendship. Now, what you're experiencing in your marriage or your relationship is less of them. It's like they're getting their needs met somewhere else. It's like they ate before they came home, so they're not hungry. And that hurts a lot. It hurts a lot to feel maybe like they don't trust you or that they don't value you. Now, is that about you? Absolutely not. It's not about you at all. Someone who cheats, whether it's emotionally or physically, is 100% an adult decision that they've made. Now, but what can happen in an emotional affair is you start getting where you feel alone. And you can actually feel married and alone. If you're feeling that, you might want to check out intimacyanorexia.com. That's where they actively withhold spiritual, emotional, and sexual intimacy from you. Even though they're having this emotional or physical relationship out here, they're too busy for you. They blame you. They withhold love. They withhold praise. They withhold spiritually. They withhold sex, or they're disconnected during sex. They're not talking about their feelings with you. They use anger and silence as a way to control you. They have ongoing criticism of you. And you feel like a roommate. If you feel like that sounds familiar to you, you really might want to look up intimacy anorexia. Because if you're in that pain where you're being neglected in the marriage or in the relationship and they're having an emotional or physical affair, you're in double pain. You're in the pain of them doing what they're doing, okay? And you're dry and alone and your sponge is just drying up, and then they smash you with the information of this affair. So the emotional affair is really damaging in this way. It's a real threat to your long-term relationship, because they give their heart to someone that feels like a sacred violation, a sacred betrayal, because they stood up and said, I will love, honor, and cherish you if they married you. I will forsake all others, but you don't feel them forsaking all others. And there's something unique about how an emotional affair can be a big threat to you, can threaten your family, and it could actually end your marriage because they might fall in love. Now, sometimes they're just coining the other person and telling them that they love them so they can get their needs met and continue to have those little buzzes and hits and intrigue addiction stuff. And if your spouse is an intrigue addict, well then you do good to watch the intrigue addiction, because that's the guy or gal who's always looking at people, checking people out, being super nice, and you can feel like this energy is always leaving you. And it's not like an emotional affair, but it feels like they're on their way to find one. Okay, that's a whole nother process. Now, let's talk about the physical, because the physical can be in so many different ways, okay? Some women feel very betrayed just by the masturbation, if he masturbates. If he's looking at pornography, that's another form of betrayal, okay? Those hurt, and our research shows they hurt a lot. And if it's actually a physical relationship, now the physical relationship can come in various forms. It could be fetish, where they go to a dominatrix or act out in a certain way that they don't do inside of a relationship because they don't put relationship in that kind of sex act. It could be paid for services, strip clubs, prostitutes, stuff like that. It could be anonymous encounters, one night stands, and stuff like that. And that's like a whole category by itself. And then there is the affairs, where they really say, I love you, and they care, and they're having sex regularly, they buy them gifts, they go on vacations with them. They really make a lot of effort to be in that relationship. And that's a totally different physical affair. So I find women now, just to give you context, I have worked with women and men who've been cheated on for the last 35 plus years. I have done thousands of assessments on people who have infidelity, both emotional and physical. I'm not just someone who's just shooting something out on YouTube. I have seen the pain and devastation because we do polygraphs in our office. One woman finds out it wasn't emotional, it was physical. And it's really hard to say what's greater, because greater is what you've experienced. If all you've experienced is an emotional affair, that's the greatest pain you're going to be in. So you think it's worse than a physical affair, or you could compare it. Now, the person who's doing an emotional affair thinks it's a lot worse to do physical, so that's why they're not doing it. The person who has experienced a physical affair, it doesn't matter in what form, they tend to put sex services in a different category because that's not a threat to their relationship. It's really bad, it really hurts, and they can't believe they did it. But if it's an ongoing affair, now that's a threat to the marriage, that's a threat to the relationship, especially if it's been ongoing for sometimes 2, 5, 10, 15 years. Well, then he's basically had 2 wives, or she's had 2 husbands, right? That's a totally different type of betrayal. And on the spectrum of pain, those are the women that I see really experience a lot of pain, and men, when it actually crosses the physical line. Now, if yours hasn't, that doesn't mean it minimizes your pain. You're in a lot of pain, but you might not have been shot by as big of a bullet, so you don't know that the physical is worse. And so you could argue all day that your pain is the worst, because it is. Your pain that you're having is the worst pain. It's just not the pain of what could be worse is finding out you have an STD. What could be worse is he got someone else pregnant. What could be worse is he's been having sex with someone for 2 years. That pain seems to really go in a different direction in women and men's lives. It seems like it crosses a line. And therefore, because it crosses the line, the pain does feel significantly different. And they would say it's worse than having an emotional affair. Now, in my 35 years of sitting with women and men who've experienced both, I've never, ever heard a woman or a man say who's experienced a physical affair say, I wish they would have just had an emotional affair. That would have been easier for me. Okay, I mean, that would be easier for them. But I've never had anyone who's had an emotional affair say, gosh, I wish they would have just slept with them. Now, that would have made so much more easier for me if he would have had sex with them, or she would have just had sex with them. That would have been so much easier for me. I've never heard that. And so your pain is your pain, and no one can tell you what's greater. Your pain is greater because it's your pain. If I'm having a toothache, I'm having a toothache. And I don't know what your toothache feels like, but I know what mine feels like. So don't let anyone minimize the pain if it's an emotional affair or a physical affair. If you're experiencing partner betrayal trauma, you're having PTSD symptoms, depression, weight gain, lower self-esteem, get help. Call our office, 719-278-3708. You can go to the Facebook groups for both partners of sex addicts, partners of intimacy anorexics called Married and Alone, people having emotional affairs. You can find support. You don't have to go through whatever pain you're going through alone. That will make your pain worse. You need someone who's competent to talk to, so please call my office and get that help. Because it doesn't matter what someone else thinks about if it's worse or not worse. What matters is if you get help. It doesn't matter the size of the bullet. It matters that you get the bullet out and you start processing and walking through your own personal healing. So please do that. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, we have lots of information for you. And also, if you have a question, please put it in the box. We'll be happy to get back to you. And I'm truly sad that this has happened to you, but you can decide how you heal, quickly, fastly, with help or without. That's your call, and I really hope you do the best for you.